Sorry.
Huh?
Sit or
Yeah, sit here. No, Quran you are reciting, right? So you face Qibla, Quran.
Echo.
I know your name.
نصرت الله جدلی. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاء المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم إن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا مهلرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا مهلرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب الرحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند مهلرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحيي الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على آل دعای توسل اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي ابن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Thank you. يا وصي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. حوایج رو مد نظر. يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين. صلوات.
وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجرا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں یوں حضرت زینب نے کہا پیٹ کے سینہ برباد ہوئی میں ایک دن تھا کہ چادر میرے سر سے گری تھی سورج بھی نہ نکلا سر ننگے پھرا تھا ہے مجھے آج کمینہ برباد ہوئی میں ایک دن تھا کہ اس شہر کی کرتی تھی میں شاہی اور آج تباہی بے غسل پرامور نبوت کا نگینہ برباد ہوئی میں بھائی موئے بیٹے موئے زندہ میں پھنسے ہیں وارث نہیں کوئی عباس نہیں جیت نہیں شاہ مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں قاسم نہیں اکبر نہیں عباس نہیں ہے عابد ہے تو بیمار ये कैसे पड़ा मुझ पे मुहर्रम का महीना, बर्बाद हुई मैं, आबाद हुई कर्बो बला, उज्र मदीना, बर्बाद हुई मैं। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद। قوموا إلى واسمعوا صلاة الفاتحة.
Dr. Dungersi, respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, Adam Allah ajurna wa ajurakum. Tomorrow, Wednesday at 10:30 a.m., we will be having the ladies only Amal of Bab al-Hawaij, which will be in person and Zoom. On Thursday, we will be having our Shab-e Jum'ah program, starting with Surah Yasin, Dua Kumail, Marsha, Majlis, Matam, Ziyar, and Ziyarat-e-Waritha. Followed by Friday, Salatul Jummah with Sheikh Bilal Hussein, starting with Dua and Nudba. On Saturday, we will commemorate the Wafat of Imam Hassan al-Askari. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Starting with Salat. Followed by Sunday, we will have madrasa classes at 10:45 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. After which, we will have our Eid al-Zahra program at 7:05 p.m. As you've seen on our community broadcast, we have sent out the Grand Miladun Nabi celebration for Saturday, September 30th. It will be starting at 1 p.m., starting with Salat, followed by an Islamic blockbuster game show, where we will have an obstacle course, carnival games, an ice cream truck, and an art drive. Clothing will be there, food and accessories. We're also having a art drive on September 30th as well during the Milad al-Nabi celebration. To be a vendor as well as an art vendor, please do see our community broadcasts for the links. On behalf of the Sijdi Managing Committee, we will be having a special meeting on Saturday, October 14th at 4 p.m. to review our expansion plans for Al-Mahdi Center and the current status of our Woodside, Jericho, and Uniondale properties. Please join me in reciting the ayah of Amma Yujib 5 times for all those who are sick here and around the world. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarayza da'u wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. At this time, please silence your cell phones, put them on vibrate or on do not disturb as we call up Dr. Dungersi. Wa Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله، روحي وجسمي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء، يا غريب ويا مظلوم كربلاء. ثم السلام عليكم يا أهل العزاء الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته مع الصلوات. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لله ملك السماوات والأرض يخلق ما يشاء يهب لمن يشاء إناثا ويهب لمن يشاء الذكور أو يزوجوهم ذكرا وإناثا ويجعل من يشاء عقيما إنه عليم قدير صلوات Mu'mineen, these are verses chapter 42 verses number 49 and 50, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the way He creates. He says to Allah belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth. Everything belongs to Allah. Then He talks about His creation. Then He says He creates whatever He wants to do is in His hands. And therefore, in His creation, He said, men, He gives them children who are females. And to some, He gives male. And to some, He gives female and male. And to some, no children. Aqim, 7 women will not have children. This is all in the hands of Allah. It is in His wisdom that He decides. Decides, we use the word decision for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no proper language really to talk about His greatness. But this is how His creation is. There are some people who will have only boys, no girls. And there are some people who will only have girls, no boys. And there are some who will have boys and will have girls. And some will have none. Very briefly, when you look at the life of Masumin, some way or another this appears there. For example, if you look at the life of Masumin, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu was salam, he had 27 children, and 11 of them were sons. 16 of them were daughters. So Allah gave him sons and daughters. Gave him more sons and more daughters. If you look at the life of our 7th Imam, whose daughter today we are going to talk about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him the largest number of children among all the Masumin. 19 sons and 18 daughters. And among these, there is one thing which is very interesting, and that is, you will see some of the Imams. For example, Imam Ridha alayhi salatu was salam, up to quite an advanced age, he did not have any children. He did not have any. So some people were looking at these verses and were thinking in that term that he is going to die without having an issue, without having a child. And therefore, Mu'mineen were worried. They would go and ask him, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, you're now over 40 and you don't have a child, so who is going to be an Imam after you? He would say, I will have a child, don't worry. So he had only one son. He didn't have any daughters, he had just one son. And after that, you see the life of other Masumin. For example, according to Al-Mufid, Imam Jawad had only one son, though some had that he had another son, whatever. And 11th Imam, he also had only one son, Imam of the time. And then in the family, then, who is in the family that didn't have any child? It is in that light that we'll very briefly look at the life of this personality whom we are going to commemorate her Shahada if you read one salawat. First and foremost, this date in which we observe this Shahada, there is a person who comes and tells me that this commemoration which appears in your calendars should be removed, because he says this is not a correct date and it is not observed anywhere except in the Khoja community in New York. So I say, I will explain it to you. See, this always happens. Sometimes people who do not know, they don't ask because they want to be educated, but they ask because they want to contradict you. And so I said, okay, I will explain it to you, how this date has been fixed. Long time ago, this is in 20s, I suppose, those who went to Ziyarah of Iran, I'm talking about that time where Zanzibar was a center of civilization. Though some people make fun of us that we don't know Gujarati, we all call Mari Bap and Marud. That is out of their ignorance. Because we may not be very good at that. There are a lot of things which we know and they don't know. Anyway, that's something else. So people who went for Ziyarah of Masuma-e-Qum of Iran, they came back and they said, you know what? There is one Shahada which is observed in Iran, and that is of Masuma-e-Qum. So how is it observed then? They found out, and this is how it all started. That Shahada at that time, and up to today in some of the centers where they observe it, and we don't tell them why they observe it, they observe it. 17th night of the month of Safar, they observe the Shahada of Imam Riza. We don't do it here, but they do it in the center. As I say, we don't tell them why you're doing it, we are not doing it. No, it's okay. So there used to be this. Now, according to the historical evidence that we have, this lady Masuma-e-Qum, when she went to Iran to visit her brother, in those days, the riwayah was that she passed away. When she went there, she was told that Imam Riza had already been martyred. And it was so much hard for her to believe, affected her so much that after 17 days, she passed away. So because of that, this date was fixed. If you count it, 30 days of, from 17th of the month of Safar up to the end, and then you add 4 days, 17 days, it comes to this particular day. So this is how this date was fixed. And it went for many, many years. Then at that time, Supreme Council of Africa came with this understanding that no, the more reliable sources say that Imam Riza was martyred on the 29th of the month of Safar, not 17. So they decided to shift this. Now when they shifted this, they did not change this particular date. And I was thinking, why they didn't do it? There must be a wisdom. And the wisdom is there because if you start counting from 29th of end of the month of Safar, 8/17, it comes to 17th of Rabiul Awwal, which is the Wiladat of the Prophet. So because of this, they did not shift, they left it as it is. Now, is there any harm in observing this Shahada? It isn't. Why? Because, and this is very recently we have found this, that they say that after the Prophet's passing away, within 3 days, they broke the ribs of Hazrat Fatima. And they did all those madhalim in the house of Hazrat Fatima. Therefore, there are some places they observe Yawm Muhsin, and that starts from 28th of the month of Safar up to the 8th of this. Therefore, these days are all days of mourning. And many comparisons are made between Hazrat Fatima to Zahra salawatullahi alayha and Hazrat Fatima Masuma-e-Qum. And therefore, observing this wafat in this night, there is no harm in it. Therefore, there is no need to remove it from our calendars. If you have removed from your calendars, good for you. If the 7th night of the month of Safar is a night of celebration for you, do it in your centers. Who's stopping you? But if you don't come here and tell us, oh, tonight is the night of celebration and we are doing here, I said, then why did you come here? If we are mourning and you think we should be celebrating, so you go to this center, I said, then go to that center. So these are the things that we should be very careful about. So that's why this is a small wafat today, therefore it's so few people. Why? Because the same thing today is not wafat. But see, these are the things which you have to explain. If you read one salawat, then we talk about Hazrat Masuma-e-Qum. Of the 18 girls of the Imam, it is said she was the eldest. And she and Imam Riza shared the same mother, because there were other family members in the family. In those days, they used to have more than one wife. So the Imam had more than one wife. And these two, Imam Riza and Fatima Masuma-e-Qum, were from the same mother. And there was a difference of age of about 20 years. Imam Riza was older than her. But there was a strong connection, very strong connection between this brother and sister. Why? Because you know that this particular personality lived with her father only for 6 years. At the age of 6, her father was taken as a prisoner. Imam Musa ibn Jafar was taken as a prisoner, and he never came back. So for 28, and this lady lived up to the age of 28. So for all that year, she was with Imam Riza, and she had a lot of influence. Imam Riza had a lot of influence on her. Therefore, her personality was such. Now comes to that question which I have said, that she, at the age of 28, she was not married. And therefore the question comes, she was not married, therefore there is no progeny from her. That's a wish of Allah, as is mentioned. There are some who would not have children. And she is one of the persons who did not have children. So why did she get married? There are 3 explanations which are given. 2 of them are valid, the third one I will not even mention it because it doesn't really make sense. If you read one salawat, then I'll tell you what it is. It is her character. Her status was such that, like Hazrat Fatima, it is said that if Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam was not there, Fatima to Zahra would not be married. Because their status was such that there had to be a person who was equal in her status. And therefore, and this is a tradition which is from very reliable sources. Therefore, they say, this lady also, her status was so high that there was no person who could really get to marry her. This is one reason which is given by scholars. The second reason that is given is that the enmity towards the family of Ahlul Bayt was such at the time that people did not want to get somehow involved in the family of Ahlul Bayt, knowing that if they married in the family of Ahlul Bayt, they will all be in trouble. Therefore, she did not get married up to the age of 28. Her status is such. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, Imam Musa ibn Jafar, Imam Riza, Imam Jawad, 5 Imams talk about her. There is no other personality who have 5 other than Hazrat Zainab, bila shak. to talk about this particular personality. For Imam Jafar Sadiq, there are two traditions mentioned. And that is before she was born. Imam says, there will come a time from my son. Now, he doesn't mention the name of the son in one tradition. There will be a daughter who will be born, and he recommended visitation of her shrine, and that she on the day of Qiyamah will become Shafi, will intervene for mu'mineen to go into paradise. In the second tradition, Imam Jafar Sadiq actually mentions the name of his father and the name of the lady. From my son Musa, a daughter Fatima. Therefore, the sixth Imam mentions about this particular person before she was even born. And then the seventh Imam, let's talk about the fifth Imam. A great personality, Mahmud. He's a great personality. He wanted to know where the grave of Hazrat Fatima to Zahra salawatullahi alayha was. Therefore, he performed a particular prayer for 40 nights so that he should get guidance. He saw a dream on the 40th night where he's standing now in the grave, between the grave of Imam Jafar Sadiq and Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. And he says, most probably it was Imam Muhammad al-Baqir who addresses him. He says, for ziyarah that you are looking for, go to Qum, to the ziyarah of Fatima. So he asked in his dream, but I want to go to the grave of Hazrat Fatima to Zahra salawatullahi alayha. She says, that is a secret of Allah. No one will know where exactly she was buried. But for you to get the same sawab, go to the shrine of Masuma-e-Qum. So that is her status like Hazrat Fatima to Zahra. That's why I say observation of a shahada during this time is valid. You should be encouraged. It should not be removed from the calendars. And I would suggest others to put it back in the calendars if they've removed it. Then Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, said when he was still not in prison, some Shia mu'mineen came to Medina. And there are a lot of difficult questions that they wanted to have answers from them, from the Imam. Imam was not present. He wasn't present. So they wrote these questions, they left in the house. When they came back again to get the answer, the Imam still wasn't there. He hadn't come back. But they were given these answers. Where did this answer come from? So this comes from the daughter of Imam Fatima answered all those questions. So when on the way back, they saw the Imam now coming back. They saw this is what happened. So Imam said, give me that question, let me see. Imam looks at those questions and said, these are exact answers which I would have given to you. And this is again sources of history, it's not me. May my mother be sacrificed on her. She has given you the correct answer that I would have given to you. See, that is the praise that comes from the seventh Imam. The eighth Imam, he did three things. It is he who gave this lady this title, Masuma. She was not Masuma. No one had called her Masuma when she was alive. She was Fatima. This title, Masuma, was given to the Imam of the time, number one. Number two, the ziyarah which we read today, this is the ziyarah which was recommended by Imam, eighth Imam. No other lady had a particular ziyarah written by Imam for that person, except for her. And the third thing which he did was, he told people, visiting her is like visiting me. Coming back right up to the time. Therefore, we removed that date because apparently we used to be told Masuma-e-Qum passed away when she was told that Imam Reza had already passed away, which is not. Now they've corrected it. They say the Imam was still alive. Masuma-e-Qum passed away when the Imam was still alive. That's why the Imam recommends pay her shrine a visit and the ziyarah which he wrote for her. So this is that great personality, so much that all these imams have talked about her, and that ziyarah that you recite, at the end of it you will see that you're asking her to intervene, that she will be the one who will intervene for us on the day of Qiyamah. So this particular personality is great. Now, in Iran, they observe it on 10th, 11th or 12th of the month of Rabiul Akhir. And they said maybe these are one of these 3 days. There is a 4th day which is said it is happened in the 5th or 7th of the month of Shaban. So there are these different dates, and therefore when efforts are made to correct these dates, leave them as they are. If you don't want to observe a particular, it's okay, leave it. Don't impose it on others and create problems, because if you start changing dates, there are a lot of dates that you'll have to change. So leave these things as they are. Those who can observe, let them observe. Those who cannot observe, it's okay, it's up to them. So this is what, and then there is something else which also we must remember, that a day we observation of an Aimma's Wafat, a martyrdom, and a date of birth is done according to times. That after Maghrib, the night starts for that Masum up to the next Maghrib. So, for example, we have Saturday night, the Shahada of 11th Imam. And we continue having that up to time of Maghrib. So functions that have to be done for Eid al-Zahra has to be done after that time. We don't do it because you'll say, we start here, say, at time of Maghrib. How about some of us who are coming back home? We dress ourselves in very good clothes, we put perfume, we celebrate when it's still the Shahada of Imam Hasan Askari. These are the things of which you have to be very sensitive. And sometimes you have to ask those who know. It's good to ask those people, especially these old people. I know these days old people don't matter very much. I know they're old-fashioned, they're old boring, whatever it is, but they still have certain things that they can offer to the community. So these are the reasons why we observe some of these days. And this is the reason why also, I say it repeatedly, and I say it again and again, because it should be remembered, this ziyarah that we recite. We recite ziyarah of Imam Hussein, and then of Imam Ridha, and then of the 12th Imam. Why? Again, it's based on the advice of the ulama of the past. And this is based because the ziyarah of Imam Hussein, no one will walk to Medina or to anywhere the way they go to Karbala. So now don't say, for every Imam we have to do it. You cannot do it. Every Imam has given his own status and his own. So, Imam Hussein's ziyarah there's not. Imam Ridha, again, if you look at the traditions, this is one Imam for which a lot of emphasis has been given to go for his shrine, for his ziyarah. To what extent, our 9th Imam has explained, when somebody asked if one has a choice to go to Imam Hussein or to Imam Ridha, he said, go to Imam Ridha. Why? Because Iraq, everybody would be going. Iran, who would be going? Because the Arab street, the Iranis as something else. These ethnicities are there. So Imam encouraged, go for ziyarah of Imam. That's why when we read the ziyarah, the ulama of the past used to tell us, read for Imam Hussein, Imam Ridha, and then the 12th Imam. That's what it does there. Recitation of all the Imams, do it, absolutely. There's no, very good, do it. But don't say that all those people who are doing it, that is wrong. That word using wrong shows nothing but either ignorance or arrogance. There's nothing else. What you do not do and you want others to do, and then you call them wrong, or on the day of Musafir, on the day of Ashur. In the past, we would not shake hands. You'd see people, they were dressed differently. They would be mocking the way, absolutely. And those are the days they would prefer not to do the way they do Musafir. Now that is wrong also. You get this guna. You have to do salam. How many people came here and how many people did to salam to everybody? But on the day of Ashur, you have to do, oh, we asked Akha Sistani. What did you ask Akha Sistani? Did you ask Akha Sistani is allowed to go to mixed weddings? And when you are there right in the front, did you ask Akha Sistani? No. You'll ask Akha Sistani that Khojas do not know, even they do sajda to the imams. We don't do sajda. We lower our heads. To go into ruku, that's something else. And we just do out of respect, we lower our heads. Or you cannot do ziyarah, wave finger like this, out of disrespect, you see. These are, as I said, either ignorance or arrogance, for which we have all to guide ourselves, lest you will be taken for a ride. There won't be old people to tell you. That's why we tell you. I know we make ourselves very unpopular by saying these things. But what has to be said has to be. Less on the day of Qiyamah. Some of you don't stand up and say, but they didn't tell us. We have told you. Then it's up to you. Up to you, you have to make. So this is the great personality, Hazrat Masuma-e-Qum. Great personality. And she, therefore, how did she reach to Iran? Very quickly. Imam Riza, as we have found out, was called by Mamun. 2000 Hijrah. And this lady was so much so attached with the Imam. And together for that 17 years that Imam Riza was in Medina after the passing away of his father, for that 17 years that he was there, she and him worked together to preach Islam. Her role was such that therefore when Imam Riza went to Khurasan, it became necessary for her also to go to Khurasan to do what? To do tabligh for the ladies of that area. And this is the reason why she decided to go to Iran. There were two kafilas, there were two caravans. One was a large one arranged by the son of Imam Musa ibn Jafar, Ahmad. The second one was a smaller one by the second son, Harun. It is said Masuma joined that second group of Masumin, of the group of about 220-30 people. On their way to meet Imam Riza, as they reached this place called Sawa, they were enemies of Ahlul Bayt. They attacked this kafilah. And when they attacked this kafilah, they killed all of them. The only person who was saved was Hazrat Masuma. And therefore they compare her with Hazrat Zainab. That the way Hazrat Zainab on the day of Ashur saw the family members be martyred and killed, she also with her own eyes saw the members of her family being martyred. That's what they say. They also say, there are some tradition, they say, at that time they told her that your brother also has already died. And therefore that information that we used to be observed in the past, that she passed away before meeting that Imam Riza passed first, then she died, is based probably by this, that she was informed that Imam Riza had already passed away. So when we read this matam, the matam which we recited on the 5th Imam, Bhaiya mere pardesi, ye kaisi khabar pai, Bhaiya mere pardesi, that Fatima is reciting this Marthya. Don't say this Marthya, don't recite it. As I say, because it is based on that maybe she did not know that her brother was still alive. And therefore she survived only for 17 days. And that also they say that by some account that she was also poisoned. Like all the Masumin Imams were poisoned, she was also poisoned. And therefore people of Qum, who were nearby Sawa, they were Shias, they were believers of Ahlul Bayt. When they came to know about this, they came all the way, Musa Khazraj it is mentioned. He is the leader of that community of Shias who were living at that time in Qum. He came all the way to Sawa and they welcomed her and they took her back to Qum. And there she was sick, she lived only for 17 days and she passed away. Now that she had already passed away, the women did all the rituals that are performed on a dead person. Everything is ready. Now comes the time of burying her. Musa Khazraj gave his own land. It was a big farmland that he had. He gave it for her to be buried there. That is where she is buried today. But now who was going, this such a great personality, which male would take her body and lower in the grave? Big question. Which is again opens our eyes. Some of the centers of these days have this tradition. Taking out tabut of Hazrat Fatima is banned. They don't take it out, most of the centers. Why? Because in the mahram, you can't do it. She said, I don't want enemies to attend my funeral. Are we all enemies? We are not enemies. And therefore, taking the tabut in the male, there is nothing wrong in it. If this is what it is, then from now onwards, no tabut on the day of Ashur. And all this muharram among women, because Hazrat Ali Akbar was na mahram, Hazrat Qasim was na mahram, Hazrat Abbas was na mahram. They don't even touch his alam. If that is how your thinking is. That's what I say. Be careful about these new innovations which are brought about Azadari. Be careful. We will not be there always to tell you. You have to know and you have to defend these traditions. Otherwise you lose all of them. Therefore, they are now wondering what to do. At that time, they said that two people appeared. They all had a mask on their faces. They didn't know who they were. These two people came. They led the prayers of Hazrat Masuma. One of them lifted her body. The other one was in the grave, received the body, and they made the grave for her. It is assumed by the way they were, that one of them was Imam Riza and the other was Imam Taqi. But this is how it happened to her. She was buried. And this is how her grave today is so much important for us to visit. Those who have managed to go should go at least one night like this. If we give it in her favor, it's nothing wrong. But one thing which I will say, Masuma, you went to a lot of difficulties. You had to travel all the way to Sawa, and you saw your brothers. They were all martyred in front of your eyes. You were poisoned, but nonetheless, you did not manage to meet your brother, and you finally passed away. But think of Hazrat Zainab and the difficulties that the ladies of Karbala went through. That Imam Hussein had been martyred. And one of the things that Hazrat Zainab was supposed to do, every martyr, whenever he was martyred, Imam Hussein would say, Ya Allah, this is the sacrifice from this family. This is sacrifice from this family. There came a time when Imam Hussein himself had been martyred. Therefore it is said Hazrat Zainab went forward. She lifted whatever was there of the body of Imam Hussein. Ya Allah, this is the sacrifice from Hazrat Muhammad. Though it is said when she went to the body of Imam Hussein, she raised this question, what is this? Are you, Hussein, is this your body? Meaning it had been cut in so pieces. The head was missing, the clothes were missing. She therefore turned to Medina. Ya Jaddah, Ya Rasulullah, when you passed away, the angels of heaven came to weep for you and came to do salam and salat for you. As for your Hussein, his body is lying mutilated. They have removed all the clothes from the body. The dust of Karbala is settling on his body. Then she turned towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, this is our complaints to you. Allah la'natullah ala al-qawmi al-zalimin. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Matam Hussein.
اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی گئی جگ سے بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی گئی جگ سے بھائی کے علم سے، صدمہ ہوا ہے ایسا جسے اٹھ گئی جگ سے بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی گئی جگ سے بھائی کے یا رب نہ کسی بھائی بہن سے ہو جدائی، جگر پھٹتا ہے غم سے، یا رب نہ کسی بھائی بہن سے ہو جدائی، جگر پھٹتا ہے غم سے، اٹھا ہے چین دل کا نہیں لطف جینے میں بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومنو می گئی جگ سے بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی گئی بھائی کے علم سے، یہ داغ ذرا فاطمہ قمی سے تو پوچھے اس سخت علم کو، یہ داغ ذرا فاطمہ قمی سے تو پوچھے اس سخت علم کو، کیا دل پہ گزرتی ہے بھلا اس جدائی سے بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومن می گئی جگ سے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی گئی جگ سے، افسوس وہ کس شوق سے نکلی تھی وطن سے ملنے کو بھائی سے، افسوس وہ کس شوق سے نکلی تھی وطن سے ملنے کو بھائی سے، اور یہاں تو ملا داغ جدائی کا جگر پہ بھائی کے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی گئی سے پہنچی جو قم میں تو ملا افسوس یہ پیغام مارے گئے امام، پہنچی جو قم میں تو ملا افسوس یہ پیغام مارے گئے امام، سنتے ہی وہ گش کر گئی اس سخت خبر سے بھائی کے علم سے، اے سے بھائی کے علم سے، اے مومنو لو فاطمہ قمی بھائی کے علم سے۔ سورۃ البقرۃ الفاتحہ۔
زيارة سيدة معصومة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام على آدم صفوة الله، السلام على نوح النبي الله، السلام على إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام على موسى كليم الله، السلام على عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا خير خلق الله، السلام عليك يا صفي الله، السلام عليك يا محمد بن عبد الله خاتم النبيين، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وصي رسول الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين. السلام عليكما يا صبتي نبي الرحمة وسيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين سيد العابدين وقرة عين الناظرين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر العلم بعد النبي. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق البار الأمين. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الطاهر الطهر. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا المرتضى. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي التقي. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد النقي الناصح الأمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي. السلام على الوصي من بعده. اللهم صل على نورك وسراجك وولي وليك ووصي وصيك وحجتك على خلقك. السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. السلام عليك يا بنت فاطمة وخديجة. السلام عليك يا بنت أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا بنت الحسن والحسين. السلام عليك يا بنت ولي الله. السلام عليك يا أخت ولي الله. السلام عليك يا عمة ولي الله. السلام عليك يا بنت موسى بن جعفر ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك عرف الله بيننا وبينكم في الجنة وحشرنا في زمرتكم وأوردنا حوض نبيكم وسقانا بكأس جدكم من يد علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليكم. أسأل الله أن يرينا فيكم السرور والفرج وأن يجمعنا وإياكم في زمرة جدكم محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وأن لا يسلبنا معرفتكم إنه ولي قدير. أتقرب إلى الله بحبكم والبراءة من أعدائكم والتسليم إلى الله راضيا به غير منكر ولا مستكبر على بقين ما أتى به محمد وبه راد نطلب بذلك وجهك يا سيدي. اللهم ورضاك والدار الآخرة. يا فاطمة اشفعي لي في الجنة فإن لك عند الله شأنا من شأن. اللهم إني أسألك أن تختم لي بالسعادة فلا تسلب مني ما أنا فيه ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم استجب لنا وتقبله بكرمك وعزتك وبرحمتك وعافيتك. وصلى الله على محمد وآله أجمعين وسلم تسليما يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي الشهيد بكربلاء. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته.